You are listening to Ranc Sports Radio, coming to you from the gaming capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. To be part of the show, give us a call at 702-475-5WIN. That's 702-475-5946. Send us a tweet at Ranc Sports, that's RANC Sports, or send us an email at rsrshow@gmail.com. And now, let's start the show.
Yes, and welcome in here to the latest edition of Ranc Sports Radio, brought to you live, courtesy of DraftKings, DraftKings.com, your one-day source for daily fantasy sports leagues. Also, we are brought to you by FanBuild.com, your number one source in sports hybrid t-shirts. Check out the boys over at FanBuild.com. And we're also sponsored by a new hip-hop group here in the Las Vegas area, Blue Lotus Entertainment. Check out their interview. We'll be talking to those guys on Friday about what they got going on. So check out the boys at Blue Lotus Entertainment on Facebook. My name is Aaron Crouch. I am your host. We are gathered by a talented group of experts from Ranc Sports. I have Ranc Sports lead writer on the boxing circuit, John Sirocco. John, good evening.
Good evening to you, sir.
How's it been down there in sunny FLA?
It's been, like you said, man, it's sunny. It's the weather down here is crazy, you know. In the wintertime especially, it's one day it'll be 50, the next day it'll be 90. So it's that takes some getting used to, but you know, we're good. We're surviving. There's still palm trees and beaches, so I'm good.
I'll tell you what, I don't miss the 50 to 90. I'll take more toward the 50. It's been raining here in Las Vegas, man, which is weird for a desert, I'll tell you that. We also have NHL lead writer and also NBA basketball enthusiast, Shane McIntosh. Shane's also in the Florida area, in the Orlando area, just catching up on some late night hoop parlays. Shane, what's going on, brother?
Not too much. How you doing out there in Vegas?
Doing good. We are, I think you and I are both getting ready to sweat the UNLV game here a little bit, so that's going to be a fun night.
Oh, definitely.
All right, boys. Well, if you want to be a part of our show, give us a call, 702-475-5946. Let's get the fans involved. You can email us, rsrshow@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at Ranc Sports. That's RANC Sports. Once again, we are brought to you by DraftKings and DraftKings.com, your one-day source for daily fantasy sports leagues. All right, let's dive in, guys. We got a jam-packed show. Let's talk about one of the big key guys that was not franchise tagged here the last couple of days. That's former Dallas Cowboys running back DeMarco Murray. And I think we all knew that the end result of Monday's tagging session would be that Dez Bryant would get the tag, and unfortunately DeMarco Murray would not get the tag. Dave and I talked on the show, and we both disagreed with the Dallas Cowboys decision. Ultimately, we knew that was going to happen. But what were your initial thoughts? I'll start with you, John. What were your initial thoughts on the Cowboys and their decision not to tag DeMarco Murray and let him test the free agent market?
Well, like you said, it was no secret that the Cowboys were going to use their franchise tag on Dez Bryant and not DeMarco Murray. And I think that was the correct decision. I think a top-notch, top 2, top 3 wide receiver is more important in today's NFL than, you know, a top 2 or 3 running back. However, it's not often that you see an 1,800-yard rusher hit the free agent market. And, I mean, you know, it's pretty much the Dallas Cowboys playing with fire. The Cowboys have enjoyed more success this past season than they've enjoyed in the past 5, 6, 7 years, and that's due in large part to DeMarco Murray's emergence behind that great offensive line last year. So we're going to be able to. They haven't given up trying to get him back, though. I can assure you that they know how important he is to that offense.
Yeah, but Shane, I mean, don't you think that the Cowboys have to be a little worried, franchising Des Bryant, with this whole reports of this Walmart tape, the surveillance tape, or whatever tape we got coming out that's supposed to be 5 times worse than Ray Rice? I mean, do the Cowboys have any concern about that?
I don't think so. Obviously, the Ray Rice thing threw them into a little bit of a loop last summer, so I could see it being a little bit of a problem. But I mean, the guy is just such a great receiver, and they can't lose him. Like John alluded to, it's more important than a running back, even though he ran for 1,800 yards. I think he's staying there, and they'll pay him whatever, and they'll pay whatever to get it hush hush and get him ready for training camp. He's not going anywhere.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with the Des Bryant situation. Obviously, Des Bryant was franchise tagged. He says he wasn't happy about it. There's reports coming out that he may have to play 2 franchise tags before he gets his long-term deal. DeMarco Murray is now obviously probably one of the top free agents on the market, next to guys like Ndamukong Suh. Let's talk about some potential landing spots for DeMarco Murray. And John, where do you think, if you could see into the future with your crystal ball, where do you see a guy like DeMarco Murray ending up in 2015, 2016?
Okay, I don't think this is going to happen, but I just want to start this off by saying there was a report, I'm not sure if you guys saw it, that probably Murray's agent put out, pretty much saying if the Cowboys were in the same ballpark offer-wise, that he would love to stay in Dallas. So I think DeMarco probably loves his situation there behind the best offensive line in football, and he played his college ball in that area, that region of the country. So, I wouldn't rule out the Cowboys, but I think a team like the Indianapolis Colts, who clearly in the last year and a half went all in to try to get themselves a running back and obviously failed with Trent Richardson, I could definitely see him landing in a spot like Indianapolis, a team that is obviously a playoff team, and I think a guy like Murray can do what he did for the Dallas Cowboys in Indianapolis, and that's take them to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely – I read the report. I think for DeMarco Murray to go there, they're going to have to get a whole heck of a lot better on the offensive line in Indianapolis. Now, DeMarco Murray, obviously, the reports are that he was offered 4 years, $16 million from the Cowboys, which, I mean, for any running back that just ran for 1,800 yards, that seems like a slap in the face. Let's say that he does move on. You think Indianapolis, Shane? Where do you think DeMarco Murray lands after this free agency period has passed?
Like John said, the Colts are a great possibility, but how about I go with somewhat of a dark horse, and let's go with the Seahawks if Marshawn Lynch does decide to hang him up. I'm pretty sure they'd have the money to do so with Lynch's contract coming off the books, and he is, I think, worth the same amount of money as Lynch, so I could see Seattle scooping in there and stealing him from an NFC playoff rival. So let's go with the Seahawks for fun.
Yeah, that's definitely what you would call a dark horse. We just got a tweet from Mo Jiggle Jangles, which that's an interesting tweet. We appreciate the tweet. Mo Jiggle Jangles says he can see DeMarco following Emmett's footprints and going into Arizona to play for the Cardinals. I think that's definitely an interesting possibility, especially with the money that Larry Fitzgerald renegotiated his contract to save Arizona. They could use that money to potentially go after DeMarco Murray. So that'd be an awesome pickup for them for sure. Could
you imagine that with Bruce Arians' ability to squeeze every drop of talent out of every single individual player? Could you imagine what he would make that offensive look like with DeMarco Murray?
I think that's a scary proposition. I mean, you're talking about a team that went, if I'm not mistaken, 11-5 with patchwork offense. Just imagine if they could get Carson healthy and with a full season, and DeMarco handing them, getting the balls from Carson Palmer, and their wide receivers are pretty good. John Brown's emergence last year was unexpected, but definitely a plus for them.
Yeah, but if the Cardinals had a guy like DeMarco Murray this year, even though their quarterback went down, you can always have a guy just drop back and give Murray the ball 30 times a game, and your quarterback situation becomes less of a problem than it was for the Cardinals, even though they still made the playoffs with that problem.
Yeah.
Ellington couldn't stay healthy. I mean, I actually like Ellington a lot. I saw him play against Florida State a couple times, and he was just amazing. And I like him, but he can't stay healthy. And they went through 3 or 4 running backs last year after him, being on the sideline with his toe injury or foot injury. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, a guy like DeMarco on a team that plays defense, they play pretty similar to what Seattle and San Fran does, and that's run the ball, pass on third down, and play great defense. So I mean, it would fit their philosophy in Arizona.
And DeMarco Murray, could be the workhorse and then move Andre Ellington back to that change of pace back that he was, some 2 years ago, instead of trying to carry the load, which he's not a big enough back to do. So yeah, Arizona would be a heck of a landing spot. Thank you for that tweet. You can tweet the show at Ranc Sports, RANC Sports. I'm gonna throw out a current event as far as where Murray might end up, and I'm thinking that Murray, quite possibly with the cap space that they're starting to save, I think DeMarco Murray is going to stay in the NFC East and a little bit of a slight to Dallas and end up in Philadelphia, boys. Can't you see DeMarco Murray, a same kind of running back as far as workload as LaShawn McCoy, maybe even more, and then still have Darren Sproles there? That would be definitely 2 big weapons if they decide to go up and get Marcus Mariota. In Mariota's development, to have DeMarco Murray and that receiving core, if they can get Jeremy Maclin back. What do you boys think about the Philadelphia angle?
That's interesting. No, go ahead, John. You're first.
Okay, I was just going to say I don't see that as a fit at all. Just personally, in my opinion, Philadelphia's run offense is just strictly run zone scheme, that zone inside scheme where, straight out of the shotgun, where DeMarco Murray, makes his living lining up in the I formation or the single back with a quarterback under center and finding his, in a man blocking scheme for the most part. And being able to find the correct hole and plow into somebody. Just personally, probably more so because I haven't seen Murray do that is probably why I don't see it as a fit.
Shane, what do you think about in the news recently the thoughts and the talks of a sign and trade with Minnesota, basically a swap DeMarco for Adrian Peterson?
Well, there was some rumors about that last season, I believe, where Peterson kind of said something to the wrong person, and they kind of tried to blow it out of proportion that he would, always envisioned playing in Dallas, his favorite team growing up. So, I mean, it would make sense for both teams with Peterson kind of upset with Minnesota because they kind of just turned their backs on him when he was down and out, and now all of a sudden they want him back now that all the bad stuff's kind of faded out. So, I mean, it makes sense for a lot of reasons. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't know how many draft picks would have to go elsewhere, but I still take Peterson as the best running back in the league when healthy and playing. So I think him running behind that line in Dallas would be just real scary. I wouldn't want to face him.
Yeah, I mean, we could also almost see a repeat of the old Herschel Walker trade 20, 30 years ago. That would be an interesting. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, so that'd be kind of fun to watch. Go ahead.
If I can jump in here real quick, and just thinking, on DeMarco Murray's part, why in the world would he sign a deal and then accept to be traded to Minnesota when he controls all the cards right now? That's just not. I've heard that rumor out there, and it's just not realistic because why would he agree to go to Minnesota?
Well, that's if I think Minnesota was going to pay more than anyone else for his services.
But he could just sign there he could just sign there as a free agent if that was the case.
Well, he's not going to sign there as a free agent if Adrian Peterson's still there.
Yeah. I mean, I think Minnesota's a better spot than, say, Jacksonville, who's been rumored. It's not better than Indianapolis, Arizona, or Philly, the ones we talked about earlier. So unless his market isn't as big as everyone thinks and his choices get limited, and I don't see why Minnesota's a terrible spot to go.
Right. I think that DeMarco's going to find that he's only 26, 27 years old, which is actually under the dreaded deadline for running backs. I think that he's only going to be able to see. I think he's going to see right around the area of 4 years and $20 million, which isn't too much more than what Dallas originally offered him. So I think that that's kind of the market for him. They're going to be a little bit. All the teams are going to be a little bit timid. I mean, there are dumb teams that are going to throw money. Potentially the Raiders, potentially the Jaguars. I mean,
yeah, and
who knows?
That's like, according to the collective bargaining agreement, teams have to spend 89% of the salary cap allocated. So basically, you have teams like Jacksonville who have $65 million in cap, or Oakland that has $52 million in cap. They have to spend 89% of that. So I mean, it's not, when you have dynamite players like this, and like you said, Murray's only 27 years old. He just turned 27 like less than 30 days ago. So I mean, this guy's getting a 5-year deal. It's going to be upwards around $35 million, I think. This guy is going to be he's going to cash in free agency.
Well, I mean, if you're talking the difference between $5 and $7 million a year, if you're talking that $2 million difference, I really think you got to pick DeMarco Murray's brain. And Shane, I'll ask you this question: do you think? And I know DeMarco hasn't publicly come out and said it, but do you think that DeMarco is really all about the money, or do you think he has any desire to actually win a title? I mean, if you go to Oakland, Jacksonville, etc. I mean, you really can't see within the realm of your 5-year contract being competitive for a title, even with the signing of such a great running back. I mean, what do you think's on his mind? Title or money, or maybe he thinks he can get a combination of both?
He's a quiet guy. Anywhere he looks like old in his interviews, he seems like he wants to win. He knows that, like you said earlier, the shelf life for a running back isn't quite what it used to be. Look at guys like Sean Alexander and Jamal Lewis, the guys that got these huge contracts and never really performed up to what they got paid to do. So I think he knows that in the back of his mind he only has so much time to make the money. He seems like an intelligent guy. But yeah, I think he wants to win as well. I mean, he saw Dallas improve last year, and they were close. That catch, one catch away. So I mean, I think he's kind of in the middle there. I think he should take the money based on, like I said, the running back window or wall, hitting that wall at about 30. But then again, you don't have any chances of winning the NFL either. So I'm not sure. What do you think, John?
I'm with you. I think you go after the money if it's significant. Like Aaron said, if the difference is $1.5 or $2 million a year, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money. Because over 4 or 5 years, that comes out to $8-10 million. So that's a decision that definitely has to be made. But if I'm Murray, I'm going with who gives me the best chance to be the feature guy and who's paying me the most. A combination of those things. And then if you go to a bad team, in my opinion, I think a competitive guy, which Murray probably is, looks at it like I can help turn this team around.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, DeMarco's a Las Vegas boy. He came out of the powerhouse over here that is Bishop Gorman. So hopefully I can see him on the streets during the offseason, maybe get him on the show. I know pipe dreams. But yeah, I mean, Indianapolis is a good spot. I think that they have the cap money to pay him. I pretty much think that they're going to be starting to cut ties here with Trent Richardson. I hope that DeMarco Murray ultimately, and I'm not a Cowboys fan, I hope he goes back to the Cowboys. I think they're starting to do good things over there, and I know that's good for the league. Whether you agree with it or not, it's good for the league when the Cowboys are good. So I think I don't see why Chip Kelly can't fit a guy like DeMarco Murray in the Eagles scheme. I don't see why Chuck Pagano or Bruce Arians can't get a guy like DeMarco Murray and maximize those 5 years or 4 years, whatever he's going to get. So it'll be interesting to see the next couple of months where DeMarco ends up, and there may be some other pieces in place. If C.J. Spiller ends up going to Jacksonville, I don't think they're going to pursue DeMarco Murray. So there's some pieces in place that actually may hold the cards to where DeMarco Murray ends up in 2015's in the new 2015 season.
It looks like Spiller's definitely out in Buffalo at this point, and
yeah, I think that's a given.
And deep down in my heart, I kind of see Murray going back to Dallas, and it's probably the best situation for him because he's been playing there for the past four seasons, and he they know him and what he can do, and I like to see players stay with one, even though it's rare, it's a rarity these days. It's nice to see a player when he sticks it out with one team.
I think he has a chance to challenge a guy like Emmitt Smith. I mean, at the rate he's going, he had some injury-plagued early years, but if he can have some longevity in his career, I think a guy like that, has the workhorse mentality to, possibly be up there in the top 5 rushers of all time yards wise. So let's talk about you. You brought up, C.J. Spiller's ultimate, departure from Buffalo. Obviously, there was a huge trade that happened yesterday. Well, it can't happen until the 10th, but agreed upon yesterday. LaShawn McCoy headed to the Bills and Rex Ryan's new offensive schemes. And Kiko Alonso, the former Oregon product, heading over to his old coaches in Philly. Initial thoughts on this trade, Shane, when you saw it come across the wire, LaShawn McCoy headed to the Bills for Kiko Alonso headed to Philly, excuse me.
The first thing I thought is he's still a first-round running back in fantasy football this year? Playing with Rex Ryan, I didn't think so, but on the real perspective, it was interesting because you got a guy like Rex Ryan, a defensive coach, trading for offensive help. And then you have Kiko Alonso going to an offensive-minded coach in Chip Kelly. So 2 guys that like to run their respective sides of the ball, improving the other side of the ball for whoever the coordinator is. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then once again, the whole Alonso thing going back to play with Chip Kelly, seems like he likes his guys from college, and he has a system kind of like what Belichick does. And if he thinks the player can fit his system and he has more value to him than another team does. I think a lot of people thought that the Eagles were crazy. Eagles were crazy for trading McCoy. But Kiko Alonso is a great player. I mean, I watched him play a lot against the Dolphins his rookie year, and he was just all over the field. And it goes back to that running back thing with DeMarco Murray. And these running backs, how long do they have to run? They're one ACL from being done, although Alonso is coming off the ACL injury. So that's the only thing I think that I'm kind of questioning if Alonso is healthy. But it's a crazy trade. You don't see blockbusters like that every day in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. John, what are your thoughts? I personally, when I look at this trade, I feel like the Eagles could have gotten more for LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy, you talk about fantasy first-round running back. Sure, he's a first-round running back. Is he top 2 this year? Probably not. But, I feel like they could have squeezed some draft picks along with Kiko Alonso. I understand he got his Oregon boy. That's fine. That's great and dandy, whatever. He's coming off an ACL injury. You're basically giving up a potential 1,600 to 1,800-yard running back in Rex Ryan's, offensive schemes, because you've seen it with the Jets. He's a one-back set. He's, an I formation. We talked about DeMarco Murray, this as well. I feel like the Eagles kind of missed a bet, to use a poker term. They kind of missed a bet in not acquiring more for a guy like LaShawn McCoy.
I was certainly shocked when I saw the deal. There's no doubt about that. But then, after analyzing it, obviously LaShawn McCoy is a lot bigger household name than Kiko Alonso. But Kiko Alonso, I can tell you this, was very coveted inside the Buffalo Bills organization. I mean, you have to look at the deal both ways. Like you said, LaShawn McCoy is a potential 1,800, 1,900-yard rusher. But, he's pushing it. What is he, 26, 27 years old now? So
he's 26.
Okay, so, he's got 3-4 years at maximum, production, basically. Kiko Alonso has the potential to be a Pro Bowl linebacker for the next 10 or 11 years, too. So you have to look at the deal, based on now.
Sure, but you're talking about a guy who's coming off a major ACL injury. And I understand, like I said, he's Chip's boy. I understand what he got. But I feel like second-round picks, maybe a lower tier, they just basically wiped out their secondary. Maybe picking up, somebody off the secondary like a Stephon Gilmore, who's an average cornerback, could have the potential in that scheme.
Gilmore is much above average. Trust me, that guy.
I mean, I watched him. Maybe it's just the games I watched. I felt like he got burned a lot by lower players. I watched him get burned by Dobson, LaFell, Amendola in games, and
Darrelle Revis has been roasted by Ted Ginn on multiple occasions. I mean,
sorry, I couldn't hear you over Darrelle Revis's ring. He was just calling me.
No, but I was certainly, the thing that raised the biggest eyebrow to me is Rex Ryan, who is obviously premier defensive mind in football probably today, was willing to, if he thought that Kiko Alonso was a franchise player, there's no way he's trading a franchise linebacker for a running back. And that's what raised the biggest eyebrow for me in terms of Kiko
He's a
So.
defensive mastermind, so obviously he knows talent. And
Right.
I mean, even with coveting Kiko Alonso, I mean, somebody calls you up and says, "I got LaShawn McCoy, available." You have to listen.
I know. If I'm working as the general manager in Buffalo, I'm taking that deal every single day of the week. I'll trade Kiko Alonso for LaShawn McCoy. Whenever you can wake me up at 3:30 in the morning, I'm signing off on that deal.
Now, let me ask you this, Shane. I understand that the two names are pretty big, but my initial thoughts on the reaction was, first, I think the Bills got a steal in the sense of they gave up a potential injury-plagued linebacker and no draft picks for their running back, basically that's going to be their feature offense, because they don't even know who their quarterback is yet. Obviously, we'll talk about the trade of Matt Castle. We'll see about that. But my second thought is, even with acquiring LaShawn McCoy, I don't think that they actually improved themselves in the division. I still think they're the third best team in that division. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, they're behind the Patriots and Dolphins in my book, but I don't think their offseason is done. I mean, it's just started. They traded for Matt Castle today. I don't think he's any good, decent backup. They're gonna have to. Rex Ryan's gonna fill in the holes on defense, but you gotta remember the defense was awesome last year. Their front seven was arguably the best in football, especially their front four. The D line was just wreaking havoc all season. So I think he's fine there. He'll find someone to replace Alonso. I was reading earlier that he's interested in bringing over David Harris, his old middle linebacker in New York, and talking about paying him $6 to $8 million a year, which is that's a lot of money. But I mean, he's a great linebacker. I'd love to see him in Miami. So he's going to fill in holes with trading Alonso. You can't replace a guy like McCoy right away. They thought Spiller was that guy in Buffalo, a very similar runner to McCoy. But he can't stay healthy. He takes too many hits. McCoy's able to avoid those. And it's not every day you get an offensive MVP caliber running back. And I think he took a shot there, trading a very talented young kid in Alonso. And he'll fill in the holes. Secondary, you guys are talking about Gilmore. I think he's above average. I don't think he's great, but he's still young. He's going into his third season now, something like that, out of South Carolina.
I felt like Chip could have gotten more for LaShawn McCoy. Now let's talk about it. You mentioned, Shane, that you have your MVP caliber running back, but I mean, at the end of the day, your offensive line is average, and you don't have a quarterback. So what are your next moves in the offseason and in the draft? I mean, do you have to go take an offensive lineman, one of the top offensive linemen? I believe they have a top 12 pick, I'm sure of.
No, they don't have a first round pick.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's another wrinkle in the.
Yeah, they traded that for
Sammy
Watkins.
You're right. I think you need somebody to throw to Watkins, and I mean, you can say the Matt Castle 2008 Patriot, whatever. Throw that season out the window. I don't care. I mean, we're past that. Look at his track record in Kansas City and Minnesota. He's not a quarterback that's going to be able to lead you to the playoffs. So I think, yes, it's great you got LaShawn McCoy, John, but I think you got bigger fish to fry, and I think you're right. Rex Ryan has so much more left to do in this offseason, and let's just hope he has the right tools in place, because I don't think EJ Manuel's gonna be the answer, and I don't think Matt Castle's that answer either. And Kyle Orton's gone; he retired.
I don't think. I was just gonna throw in there, but I don't think any three of us would be too upset to see LaShawn McCoy and Rex Ryan fall on their face in Buffalo.
Oh, absolutely. I don't. Like that's what I was saying. I mean, I'm not trying to put any bias. Obviously, we're all AFC East guys. You guys are Dolphins fans, and I'm a Patriots fan. But I don't think that they got any better. I still think it's 1-2 Pats Dolphins, and I don't think this LaShawn McCoy trade made them any better. Matt Castle as a serviceable backup, fine. What's that mean for EJ Manuel? I don't know. We'll see. But
I'm not looking forward to facing him twice a year. That's for sure.
I don't know. I don't think he'll be. I think he'll be fine. I don't. Yeah, he's a potential 1,800-yard back, but I'd be shocked. I'm going to make a bold prediction. I'd be shocked. I don't think LaShawn's going to have over 1,200 this year. And I know that's not really bold, but I mean 1,200 for a guy who had 1,700 2 years ago.
Well, like you said, they got to find a quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven league, and they have probably the worst quarterback in the. Trying to think of who's Jets going with, Geno Smith or drafting Mariota.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, the Jets are. I mean, Rex Ryan goes from one terrible quarterback situation to the next. I can't catch a break at quarterback.
Could we see Mark
But he's
Sanchez
got a
in
great
Buffalo?
defense. I don't think so. He had his one dose of Mark Sanchez. I think that offense that Chip Kelly ran in Philly kind of opened things up for Sanchez a little bit. I don't think the Bills have that style off. Well, you got McCoy now. Watkins on the outside, kind of like a Macklin, but no, I don't think that works out.
Yeah, especially since that trade for Castle, I think they pretty much named their backup quarterback today when they made that trade.
You know, they got to name a starter here real soon. So let's move on and talk about Andre Johnson. And he's days in Texas or in Houston are all but certainly over. He has requested a trade, or they will release him after refusing to take a diminished role in the offense. I still think Andre's got a lot left in the tank, even after 12 seasons. He's personally on that Larry Fitzgerald plateau, but he's unwilling to take the pay cut, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. Interesting places I think he could end up. You know, we talked about DeMarco in Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis would be a great place for Andre to end up, John. With T.Y. Hilton, I think Reggie Wayne is pretty much going to be eliminated from the offense next year. I think Andre Johnson could come in and service that role. New England's another one, obviously, always going to be in that veteran mindset. I don't know if they're going to pay him that kind of money, but you know, what do you think about potential landing spots? For Andre Johnson after Texas is pretty much either going to trade him or release him.
I think this is the Steve Smith scenario all over again. I think Andre Johnson's going to go somewhere absolutely. And, you know, I would love for Andre Johnson to go back right where he's from, right where he played college ball, and right down there in South Florida. I think there's a spot for him waiting.
Yeah, Shane, I mean, he said he'd end up in Miami. Obviously, they cut Hartline. They still have Mike Wallace at a big cap number. I mean, do they almost seem like they're the same receiver? Do they have room for a guy like Andre in Miami?
John pretty much said everything I was going to say. Thanks a lot, man.
Sorry about that.
It is a Steve Smith scenario all over again. You know, he put in his time there, and amidst all the the couple of rough seasons, the real bad season last year, he's done what he's had to do, and he has he's never really come out vocally and complained about they made playoffs twice in his 12 years there.
Yeah, sounds about
something
right.
like that. I mean, early on it was bad. You know, guys like David Carthon. So he's been through some rough times there, and he's always put in work. I saw he was on a list of some very elite guys with 1,000 yards and 100 catches in the same season. Miami, I'd love to have him in Miami. He would be the perfect guy to go with the speedy Mike Wallace and then slot receiving Jarvis Landry over the middle, making the tough catches. That'd probably be the best three wide receivers they've had probably since the Bob Griese days or Marino days. It'd be a very electric receiving core for Tannehill to hire too.
Yeah, that'd be going back to the days of Duper, Clayton, and Nat Moore. It would be pretty, it'd be pretty unbelievable. Yeah. And Andre Johnson would not only bring that production on the field, but he would be able to show a guy like Jarvis Landry the way, and he'd be able to keep a guy like Mike Wallace's ego in check, I think. So, I mean, not only for the production, but just for the presence he's going to bring inside that locker room. Because I can guarantee both of those guys damn well looked up to Andre Johnson when they were coming up through the ranks.
And then the Dolphins just released Cortland Finnegan, so I mean that makes
as well as
maybe after their altercation like a few years ago.
Yeah, that is a good point. And I didn't even put those dots together.
All right, boys. Let me ask you about a team that I would think of all 32 teams is the most desperate for a wide receiver and potentially has two on their radar. What do you guys think about Andre Johnson ending up in Kansas City and potentially ending up opposite of Jeremy Maclin?
I mean, Dwayne Bowe's been so average.
Dwayne Bowe's gone. Let's just put that.
Yeah, he's just been so average, and I don't think they retain him. He he would be the number one in Kansas City immediately with Alex Smith. Alex Smith's, he's a decent quarterback. I'm not a big Alex Smith fan. I think he's a glorified game manager is what I call him.
Sure, absolutely.
I don't think Kansas City. I don't think he would choose Kansas City. Colts, he would love to probably play with Andrew Luck, go against the Texans twice a year.
Well, don't forget Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson's under contract, so I mean he doesn't have that much of a say if the Texans decide to trade him. And I know that Jeremy Maclin says,
he did request his lease release today, though. So
yeah, but I
don't know if they'll grant him that.
Yeah, it's all about wanting to grant him that. I mean, Jeremy Maclin's come out and said he'd like to reunite with Andy Reid, who gave him his shot. I don't think it's too far off base to think of Kansas City can offer a package for Andre Johnson and go get Jeremy Maclin off the free agent list, John. I mean, that would be going from 0 touchdowns to end up with Andre Johnson and Jeremy Maclin. I mean, Andre can almost become a possession receiver while Jeremy Maclin becomes that burner.
Yeah, it's just a hard sell for me. Shane kind of alluded to it and kind of stole my thunder this time. But why would Andre Johnson, after spending years, a decade or more of just mediocre and average quarterback play, why would he go sign up to do that again in Kansas City? I just don't see that happening.
Well, look at his numbers with mediocre and average quarterback play. I think Alex Smith is better than 99% of the guys who threw Andre Johnson the ball, with the exception maybe of Matt Schaub in 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, but Alex Smith showed a non-ability to get the ball to wide receivers last year.
I think the wide receivers showed the non-ability to get Alex Smith the vision he needed for them to be open. I mean, the receivers, they were terrible. Donnie Avery, Dwayne Bowe. I mean, I don't even know.
I don't think Bowe's terrible. I think it was a combination of him just giving up on plays because he was tired of Alex Smith not being able to get the ball 15 yards down the field.
I don't know. I may be more of an
Alex. So I think that was just a bad match.
I may be more of an Alex Smith apologist than you guys, but I think Kansas City that would be an interesting scenario for them, especially with Jamal Charles. You have a short threat, a running back threat. You have a good tight end in Travis Kelce. You have a possession receiver in Andre Johnson. You have a deep threat in Jeremy Maclin. Obviously, that's a lot of things to happen. Another team that would be interesting to me is the Atlanta Falcons. They have Roddy and Julio, but Harry Douglas opens up a third receiver slot with him, departing Atlanta. I think that would be an interesting tough coverage for any team with those three guys.
I don't think there's enough footballs in Atlanta to get those three the ball and make them all happy. Personally, I think it comes down to Indy. I think Miami will kind of see if he's interested in coming back, where he started things, and I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to take the most money on the table. He'll do kind of what Steve Smith did, and he's going to sign with a team that's playoff ready and has a good quarterback situation.
Well, I think Atlanta fits that mold. They're in one of the worst divisions in all of football. I mean, they're playoff ready at 6-10 or 6-9 or 7-9, whatever they were last year. Sad to say.
But who plays the slot there? I don't think any three of them are a slot receiver.
Well, it was Harry Douglas. I think Roddy White can move into the slot. I think he's become that kind of receiver now with not the ability to burn wide receivers deep. I think another team that's playoff ready, like you say, that has the cap space and no real competition is Seattle. I think he'd be jumping on board to go take a trade to Seattle. John, what do you think?
I think if I was Andre Johnson, I would definitely explore that avenue if Seattle was interested and in offering him a legitimate contract, comparable to what else he can get on the market. That's a beautiful landing spot for any guy who's looking for a Super Bowl ring late in their career.
I'd be really shocked if Houston did not try to get something for him. I think Seattle could make it work. They had Andre Johnson, Doug Baldwin in the slot with what's his name, Curse, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. That tall guy who had 100 yards receiving in the Super Bowl.
Chris Matthews,
hardball, yeah. That would be we're talking about a group of mediocre receivers all of a sudden turning into one of the top flight group of receivers in the NFL.
I think this is going to boil down to Andre Johnson getting cut ultimately, because the original report that came out said that if Houston couldn't trade him, they were going to cut him.
Well,
so basically, why would any team trade for him? Especially if Andre Johnson's going to make things difficult, which he seems like he would do if he wasn't interested in a team that was trading for him.
Well, he's not due any money before March 15th, so obviously Houston has until June 1st to cut him. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be an interesting.
I think if you're the Houston Texans, taking everything that Andre Johnson's done for your organization over the past 10, 11 years, do right by the guy. Don't wait till June 1st, 3 weeks before camps open up. I mean, give the guy a legitimate chance to go out there and get a good gig.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, like I said, to see where he ends up. I understand doing right by the guy, but it's a business. And if you can get a 6th-round pick, that's better than nothing. So we'll see. We'll see where he ends up. I think the Colts ultimately is probably one of the best scenarios for him. They're also in an easy division.
And I can promise you, Houston won't trade him to Indianapolis just because it's an interdivision thing.
Yeah, that's not happening, especially not for anything more than at least a second.
Right.
I'm just afraid they're going to trade him to the Raiders, which, I mean, Derek Carr's not bad, but it's the Raiders. 12 years later from a Super Bowl appearance, they just still can't seem to get right. It's
like you'll be playing with Randall Cobb out there. It seems like the Raiders are going to pretty much open up the safe for Randall Cobb from what the reports are saying.
Yeah, Randall Cobb. I'm shocked that Green Bay's almost seemed. I understand not franchising, but they've almost just seemed so content on him basically being gone. I don't understand how Aaron Rodgers hasn't publicly come out and recruit him. There must be something that we don't know as far as the Randall Cobb situation in Green Bay. But yeah, it looks like he's going to be gone.
Well, it's hard because you're paying Jordy Nelson between $9 and $10 million a year. Randall Cobb's going to fetch 10 or 11 a year on the free agent market. So why would he sign with Green Bay for 7 or 8? And that's pretty much probably what Green Bay can afford to pay him, just given all their contracts.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not a Packer fan by any stretch, but I just hate that the NFL and most sports leagues have just come down to $1.5, $2 million, and you're basically taking yourself out of a competitive market for a Super Bowl and basically going, to collect your paychecks and play on Sundays a little bit. So,
but it's not $1 or $2 million because over 5 years that's $10 million. That's a lot.
Well, sure, but what I'm saying, I'm talking about per year. I mean, I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's just one of those things that's just irked me about NFL, and it started really actually with the Wes Welker thing, and I think Wes Welker looks like he's come to regret the decision that he made 3 years ago. But we'll see. Wrapping back around to Andre Johnson, he's got some interesting 3-4 months ahead of him, so we'll see where he ends up. He's most definitely not going to be in Houston, so we know that for a fact. But there is a guy who also will be looking for a new team. However, he doesn't really have the decisions like Andre has, and that's Jameis Winston. Ultimately, will probably be the number 1, if not top 5 pick in the draft. Has filed a trademark for his name, Famous Jameis, which has become obviously popular the last 2 years at Florida State, where he won a national title and a Heisman Trophy and lost 1 game out of 28 as a starter. So, Shane, I'll lead this to you. What are your thoughts on the trademarking attempt by Jameis and his company of Famous Jameis, which he's been called since he's been in Little League?
It's just his way of making sure no one can take anything from him financially. T-shirt companies printing his name on it and selling it at Bucks games, where I think he'll eventually be here in the next month or so. And I've heard some people complain about it, saying it's he's trying to get a paycheck before he's even been drafted by doing this, and he's so worried about his popularity and making money, and everyone's on the hate Jameis bandwagon. But I don't blame him for it. I mean, there's so many people out there that would like to trademark it themselves and make money off of it. So it's a smart move by him and his inner group for doing that.
Yeah, and this isn't obviously anything new. Last year, Johnny Manziel filed a trademark for Johnny Football. Robert Griffin III owns the trademark to the RG3, basically using that for his franchise. Famous Jameis, do you think he'll try to trademark the John? Do you think he'll try to trademark the nickname he had growing up, Jabu?
I mean, I haven't even heard that nickname, so I'm obviously familiar with Famous Jameis, and I think his agent should have been fired if he didn't advise him to go trademark that, because, obviously there's some money that could be made there or lost out on with other people trying to make money off of his name. So, I don't know how you can get mad at a guy, not even looking at a player, but how do you get mad at a human being for trying to capitalize on the reputation that they've built? I just don't, that baffles me.
Yeah. I mean, I think my problem with it is I'm obviously Florida State guy. I love Florida State. I love Jameis. My problem with it is everybody has already dumped so much salt on the wounds as far as Jameis in the last 2 years. The guy's taken so much more than any 19 or 20-year-old kids ever deserve to handle. I feel like this, now trademarking the famous Jameis, which is basically encompassing yourself. I get it from the business standpoint. You're absolutely right. The word famous, it's just almost such a sense of self-entitlement. I just feel like it's just more raining on the parade of Jameis Winston, and it almost the news cycle that's rolled out the last 2 days has almost painted it in such a negative light, even though we all know it's a business thing. Shane, I mean, is it such a big ordeal that the word famous is in his nickname, that people just want to see him as such a kind of a selfish player, even though he's said otherwise to the contrary?
I mean, I can't think of any other words that rhyme with Jameis. So I mean,
except for Lamus, but I don't think he wants to trademark that.
No, that or Seamus, which I've heard people saying should be his instead, mostly Gator fans.
Right.
But it's kind of self-righteous of him saying that. But it goes, LeBron James, with King James proclaiming himself a king before he even stepped on an NBA court. So I guess I can see it kind of like that. And I didn't like LeBron doing that because I'm not really a big LeBron fan. So you can kind of compare it to that, where he's using the self-titlement of this term. But it's all about the financial thing. I don't really think he thinks he's the most famous or best player in the world. He's obviously a great talent. He knows that himself, but people just want to take something and run with it, and especially with this kid after all he's gone through the last couple seasons. I don't know. I'm just over the James thing, really. I'm a fan of his, but it's gotten so old.
All right. Well, I got a trademark for you boys that's sure to get you a kick. The newest NASCAR race has been announced as the SpongeBob SquarePants 400 in Kansas City. It's scheduled to happen in May. There's no word yet if Bikini Bottom is excited and starting to plan their tickets. I don't know how they're feeling, the folks down in Bikini Bottom. May 9th, the SpongeBob SquarePants 400. I can't even say that with a straight face. Is NASCAR just so desperate, John, to just take any sponsor that's willing to throw dollars at them? I mean, I thought NASCAR was, from what I read, they're the second most popular sport, which you can believe that or not. It's true. I just don't feel like they can be that desperate to take on such a strange sponsor.
Well, I'm just curious to see if Squidward's going to be saying, "Hey, gentlemen, start your engines." That's what I'm most interested in.
No.
And it comes down to, it's money, like you said, and Nickelodeon's not a small time company. Universal,
no, not at all.
So I think this is a way for NASCAR, at least an attempt to get kids involved or kids interested in NASCAR. I think it's brilliant on the part of NASCAR.
Yeah, I think, and that's where my mind went too. And John, you and I talked about that off the show. I think that I think I'd rather see Patrick start your engines or whatever. But how about this? And Shane, I know that you're with me on this. We talked off the show. I think that it would be fun. Let's make a drinking game out of how many times the announcers say the SpongeBob SquarePants 400.
That'd be a lot of drinking, I think. I think they would get a kick out of it like you, and would not be able to say it with a straight face. But I think they're really targeting the children audience even more so with this. And apparently they've got something already in Kansas City that's Nickelodeon related. I can't remember what it was called, but it was something SpongeBob-ish, I guess, outside the stadium or whatever. So it kind of fits the title of the new race.
Yeah, Nickelodeon's spokesman has said that there'll be a Nickelodeon Kids Zone outside the Speedway zone. There'll be SpongeBob costume characters and a photo station. I think John hit it on the head. I think that this is an interesting way to get the young fans involved in racing. Kansas is one of the big stops of the year, so it's definitely a NASCAR. It's going to be an event that's viewed by many, and I think on Sunday afternoons, mom, dad watching the NASCAR race, kids are off playing. Hey, Johnny, Susie, come check this out. SpongeBob and Patrick and Squidward are all at the NASCAR race this week, and the only thing I could scary is are they going to have to keep up something like this, John, for more races to get kids involved? Because maybe the next week they're going to be like, hey, what happened to SpongeBob?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure NASCAR has an ultimate plan of how kind of the direction they want to go. Obviously they're not going to lay that out for the general public, but this is going to be a good trial run. I think if they get the response that they're expecting with this, I think there's obviously there's room for advancement, because how many tracks do they travel to throughout the year? Theoretically they could, even if it's not the name of a sponsor, they can add kid activities at every single racetrack in America.
Yeah, NASCAR runs from February to November. It's one of the longest running sports calendar-wise. I'm sure, you and I, John, have been to Daytona before. And it's a lot of booze and debauchery. And, for my adult-themed lifestyle, that's phenomenal. I'm cool with that. But, if I have kids, maybe the NASCAR is just seeing less and less families, gravitating toward the sport, and they're just seeing more and more of I hate to say redneck atmosphere, but, I'm going to use that for lack of a better word, Shane. I agree. What do you think? Do you think NASCAR is just starting to see such kind of maybe a turn for the worse in their sport? That's the reason why they went with this.
A turn for their worst. No pun intended there.
No pun intended, yeah.
You guys mentioned it. It's just basically trying to get the kids on board. I think maybe they did some kind of poll or noticed the fans in the crowd, and just not a lot of kids going to it. You both said, Daytona is all. You got the Budweiser chicks out there. You got drink. This place to try these kind of drinks and different kind of. You got the Marlboro at 10 out there, I believe, and stuff like that. So it's definitely all about the adults, and this might be their trial run on the kid aspect. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see.